Hello, and welcome to Rewriting Bad Books, a series where we take a passage from a book, which may or may not be as bad as the title indicates, and we rewrite it to show what could be done better. And today, we are looking at Sandra Hill's...
Mammoth Work.
What did you say?
Mammoth Work.
Mammoth Work.
Yeah.
The Angel Wore Fangs, which you may remember from this photograph that went viral on Instagram. Once guilty of the deadly sin of gluttony, 1,000-year-old Viking vampire angel Knut Sigurdsson is now a lean, mean vampire devil fighting machine. His new side job? No biggie, just ridding the world of a threat called ISIS while keeping the evil Lucifers, demon vampires, at bay. So when Chef Andrea Stewart hires him to rescue her sister from a cult recruiting terrorists at a Montana dude ranch, Vangel turns cowboy. Yee-haw. The too tempting mortal insists on accompanying him, surprising Knut with her bravery at every turn. But with terrorists stalking the ranch in demonoid form, Knut teletransports Andrea and himself out of danger, accidentally into the 10th century Norselands. Suddenly they have to find their way back to the future to save her family and the world, and to satisfy their insatiable attraction.
Well, if that's not going to make you read on, I don't know what would, do you?
Indeed. If that doesn't make you want to read this book, I don't know what will.
That's right, yeah.
I don't think that the publishers could have put any more effort into
Do you mean the
page.
children of the publishers who wrote that?
The children of the publishers wrote the book, or they wrote the back page?
Yeah.
So it's worth mentioning just a little bit about the style of the book.
Yes, I think that's
important. And then I will read
actually,
the passage that we're going to rewrite.
Yeah.
So this, it's weird, isn't it?
Frivolous, yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's very... I'm trying to work out who the market audience is for. It's like...
See, I instantly think young adult, but I know you said it's not necessarily strictly that genre,
I don't think a young adult would look at this twice. The yee-haw on the back page.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that when you're young, you're more interested in being cool than the yee-haw permits.
Is it just one of the variations on the, Twilight, etc.?
It
sagas
is,
and so
it?
forth, whatever they are, yeah.
This clearly wouldn't exist without Twilight, but it doesn't take itself seriously. You wouldn't call it a parody, though, would you?
No, I don't think. Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's that well done to be a parody, is it? To be a parody or a satire, it's usually quite intelligent as well.
Yeah,
usually anyway.
I mean, it says on the back it's an Avon romance.
Yeah.
So I mean, clearly that is not. You don't put that on the back of a young adult. I just don't think you do.
So do you think the Avon romance is really a concept and a brand, like Mills and Boon?
Yeah, I think that it might well come down to that, but it's, at the same time, it's clearly intended to be funny. If you think about that back page and you think, okay, you put that in the hands of Tom Sharp, or you put that in the hands of Terry Pratchett, there could be something there. Do you know what I mean? If it's like Terry Pratchett had written a book that said all of that, you might be like, oh my God, this is going to be insane. Yeah. It's going to be really, really wonderful.
Yeah.
But there isn't any part of it that I find to be wonderful. I'm going to read the passage that we're going to rewrite, which is the part where they've gone to the ranch, the cowboy ranch, and there's nobody there. And then there's dead bodies, but then there's like these creatures start rushing towards them. She looked outside now too and yelped. Huge animals, at least she thought they were animals, were rushing across the pasture heading this way, and they weren't cows, not by a bovine long shot, unless they were the Jurassic kind. From this distance they did look like scaly prehistoric kind of creatures. Maybe they were cattle of some kind. This was a cattle ranch after all. Yeah, mad cow-diseased creatures, but cows that ran on 2 legs? No, the closer they got, she could see long fangs coming out of their mouths, clawed hands and red eyes, but even so, they seemed sort of human. First thing that's kind of weird for me is that narrator. I mean, Andrea's not the narrator of this.
Right.
Which is made explicit.
Yeah.
She looked outside. At least she thought they were animals. So we're very much external. Getting a bit of the psychological, but mostly it's spatial, but it still remains external. But then you have... mad cow-diseased creatures. Like she's trying to affirm to herself, and then later on, no, The closer they got, she could see.
Interestingly,
is confused.
I picked that up as well as the mad cow diseased creatures as what we've discussed before, free and direct discourse, and I don't think it works there at all. We're entering, very, very streamlined, as it were, into her mindset and her thoughts there and you don't need the tags she thought, so it's that free and direct discourse, but I really don't think the writer makes that work to her advantage at all there. I really don't, and I think like you say, it just highlights that incongruity there. I think it's quite a confused passage really, because you do get the comparisons to cows, then Jurassic, and then tagged on the end really almost as an aside. They seem sort of human. So I kind of understand that maybe the author's trying to develop this sort of psychological process of the character working things out as she's seeing them. But I don't think it's used to an advantage at all. And I think actually they're kind of half-baked ideas.
Yeah,
I really do.
I mean, I certainly agree with you that they're huge animals. Oh, maybe they're not animals. Are they cows? Maybe they aren't. They're Jurassic cows. They certainly look scary. Oh, maybe it's catarrh. Maybe it's mad cow disease. But no, do you get a sense from this that this is somebody? This is too scary. I'm trying to process this. I'm in denial that this could be happening in reality. That's right. It's just nonsense.
And that is partly owed to going back to that indirect discourse. That mad cow disease creatures. It just, the tone is so not right for that character to be thinking about. Hang on, something terrible is coming here. Yeah. It just completely offsets a tone that is already kind of almost offset, really. It's not right on the mark at all, is it?
I don't know how you would go about fixing that with those words.
Yeah.
No, I mean one of the words or sentences rather that for me is just so completely wrong.
Yeah.
Is not by a bovine long shot.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. In keeping with the tone of the book, if I was editing this, I would leave that in.
Right,
because it is in keeping with the tone of the book.
Yeah.
But you can't have not by a bovine long shot and then try in any way to be scary.
No, that's right, yeah.
And in this regard, I think I would just cut everything between not by a bovine long shot and then go, no, the closer they got, she could see long fangs. And I basically have cut basically half of that out.
Half of it,
because it just doesn't do anything.
No.
And there isn't any part of it that works. I mean, when I say work, I'm looking for two things from this, because I know the tone of the book is, we're not taking this overly seriously.
Yeah.
First thing I'm looking for is it funny? Is that funny? No, I don't find that funny. I just find that weird.
No, it didn't occur to me at all.
And the other thing that I'm looking for is, is there a tone shift here to make these creatures scary? Because you can have a funny book that can be a little bit scary. I mean, look at the movie like Scream. The tone of that is still quite scary in places. Maybe it might just be a jump scare or whatever, but that doesn't work if you're not into it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the overriding tone of it is that it is a comedy.
Yeah. But as you say, you can fluctuate between comedy and serious and scary, can't you? But that doesn't do either here. I don't quite know what it's trying to do, I suppose, is the more simplistic way to say that. And I don't know if it's trying to be funny or if it's trying to be serious. And there's no clear distinction, is there? No. I think, like you say, if you have a moment of a comedic passage followed by something that is actually, hang on a minute, we could die here, if this is a serious moment, then it could work. I think it could work. But to segue between one and the other like that, I think you really do have to be quite, I think, an accomplished writer, very skillful writer.
I would be interested. I completely agree with you that you have to be a really skillful writer. I'd be really interested to look at something. I haven't read any Terry Pratchett lately, but there were parts of that are quite exciting, as well as the silliness and the funniness. And I would be interested to see whether he does that, where he swaps the tone around so much, because I think that if you have a scary bit that goes on for maybe 5-10 minutes, then the natural response to the end of that is almost to laugh.
Yeah,
so, it's like, we got out of that one. It's like, well, when you're watching most horror movies, there's usually a few laughs in there as well, isn't there? It's
Yes,
just
that's right, yeah.
It might be something gruesome, but it's usually something like a narrow escape and sort of the relief of it almost. So there is this opportunity, I think, to generate some humour out of this. But I think that you can't be serious silliness. You have to be a sustained period of one,
Yes.
which the other one is an alternative to, rather than
I was just going to say to you, it's almost an incidental thing that occurred to me. In the paragraph space that we've got here, what have we got, like sort of 10 lines? Yeah. Do you think that this author could have done both in that short passage? I've stuck to one particular tone,
Right.
and I'm almost thinking maybe that's what should have occurred here, because I don't think you could do two in that short space of time.
Funnily enough, I have tried. And it's not a silliness sense of humour. It's black humour that I've gone for, the darkest black humour.
Yeah. I do think it's quite a confused passage, actually.
Yeah.
The more we discuss it, the more I'm concluding that.
Let me talk to you about the last line.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Because I think what you just said about it being a confused passage is exemplified in that line, okay? Because she could see long fangs coming out of their mouths, clawed hands and red eyes. Okay, so we're building up an image of a beast, a monster.
Yeah.
And what you want to do, well, if you're sort of vaguely humanoid, you want to sort of take away from the human. So exemplify the differences. Unless, like a zombie, then you would maybe concentrate on the similarities, because what you don't want is to become like them, and lose part of yourself. So it's like you would maybe look at the similarities. But with this being a demon, I think you want to sort of exaggerate the differences. And when you've got that, she could see long fangs coming out of their mouths, claws, hands, and red eyes, but even so, they seem sort of human. You're doing the opposite of what you should be doing there. What you should be doing is, they seem sort of human, but the closer she got, she could see long fangs, clawed hands, and red eyes.
Yeah.
You move away from the human, exemplifying the differences, not the similarities.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And
it's basically dehumanizing.
Yeah.
And this is doing that the wrong way round.
They seem sort of human. I don't quite know what she's trying to achieve there. Is she really commenting on up till now, or the further evolution of humanity? It doesn't.
Let me give you an answer that might show that you're thinking about this in a way that wasn't thought about when it was written. Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Not the previous sentence, but the sentence before that says they're cows that run on two legs. So how much of a cow running on two legs is sort of human? Well, it's got two legs. Beyond
it's a biped,
Beyond that, the similarities are zero.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's just not being thought about. When she was writing 2 sentences earlier, she was not thinking what she's going to be writing 2 sentences later.
Which is a bit of a problem for a writer. Yeah.
It's a bit of a problem if you're writing more than 2 sentences.
Then she's really good at one sentence.
One sentence is an absolute cracker.
Yeah.
But that's not even true of this anyway, is it?
No,
because
it's not.
Neither of those sentences are actually good.
No. What did you think to the? It seems to me quite an entirely predictable description of some kind of monster, really. But long fangs, clawed hands, and red eyes. How many times have you seen that in sort of popular culture, or To me, it seems inexcusably lazy, I would say.
You're not doing very much with it. I can see why you would read that and go young adult, but I think that if you read more young adult, you would have more respect for the genre.
The focus of this paragraph is these, for want of a better, monsters or demons coming towards you, and by the way that she's stylized them, it makes you really not engage with it at all in the way that you would if it was perhaps described, or they were described differently.
I mean, this last line, like I said, exemplifies the confused state of that paragraph.
Yeah.
But you couldn't fix that paragraph with one really good closing line. No. Because it's just got too much damage done to it.
If you asked me to summarise that in a couple of words, I'd say it's half-baked, wouldn't you? You've got a few things happening and it's not well thought out.
I would have gone with a mess.
Yeah, or a mess. I'll tell you what, a half-baked mess.
A half-baked mess.
Put it in the oven, 180, 20 minutes. Yeah.
And that what's worse with
Yeah.
you can't just leave it at mess.
No.
I mean, I would be diplomatic if I gave that back to somebody and said that's a bit messy. Because it's not just mess. It's like you can move bits around and you go, yeah, but it's still awful. This is my version. Andrea looked out at the horde. Enormous creatures, inexplicably dark and sadistically clawed, some cleaving viciously through the very fences their frenzied cohorts were scaling, all scuttling their chitinous ways inexorably towards the ranch. Andrea looked at Knut and sighed. That very morning, Andrea had wondered if she'd wait her whole life for her Mr. Right, and never even thought that the universe's sense of irony was as sharp as the Viking's sword, or that it was even less worried about which orifice it stabbed it in. What I've tried to do there is something you quite often see, or hear rather, with a movie, which is that different groups of people or different characters will have their own theme. And I kind of thought to myself, well, what kind of theme would you associate with bugs, insects, or insectoid creatures? And it's kind of like the scratching the itch.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I've kind of done is hopefully you heard it in the language that there's like a lot of ch and a lot of sk sounds.
Can I interrupt your flow a little bit?
Of course you can.
Only with that sort of associative language, with the insects. Do you think that does the size maybe and severity of these beasts, shall we say, a slight injustice? If you're picking up on kind of an insect, it's not associated with big kind of beast,
Insectoid, but the very first sentence I use is enormous.
Is enormous,
creatures,
yeah, that's true.
Which actually is even more exaggerative of the situation than the original.
But I like that you're giving them an identity through language or through the sound of language. I think that's really an interesting tool. Yeah.
What's hard to do is that it's a very concentrated.
It is, isn't it?
And obviously, if you were to do this through a whole book, then you would have a lot more room to play with that. You perhaps wouldn't end up with sort of alliteration that wasn't intentional. I mean, I don't mind the alliteration; it's not hurting my cause.
Yes,
but it isn't. I haven't done it there to help my cause.
Yes.
So you have that in the first half, and you don't have that in the second half. Which I'm going to put it back up on screen so you can kind of see what is being there. You don't have it in the second half. For the second half, like the first, begins with the word Andrea. So from the second Andrea looked at Knut and sighed. What you have there from that point on is a much more gentle language, almost like her own thing. And also, you'll probably, if you're a regular on the channel, you'll see the verbs that I've used, and you thought those are all verbs that he says don't use, because I've used them for the reason that they are the very basic human things we do. Andrea looked at Knut. I could do more, just glanced, stared, shot a look at. Andrea had wondered, Andrea thought, and never even thought. So we look, we think, I've used those verbs in their most basic sense, rather than try to do more with them, tying them into her thing. And yes, I have tried to have a little bit of humour in the end there, with the universe's sense of irony being as sharp as a Viking sword, and not being overly concerned where the universe tends to put things. So it is an attempt at humour. It isn't an attempt to make you laugh out loud. I don't think that it's really going to do that. But it was trying to keep the tone of the original. It's like, but try to be, yes, these things are scary. And two, there's a little bit of irony at play here.
Yeah.
It's like trying to be a little bit amusing.
So that's going back to actually what we were saying, wasn't it? Whether to keep the tone of the piece the same, or like you have done, straddle sort of two slightly differences of tone.
The only humour you can generate in that scene is black humour, is dark humour. I don't think that you can have silliness and have it work.
No.
So that's what I went for.
We've got a lot of polysyllabic words there. So viciously, inexorably, inexplicably, sadistically. Were these words that you searched for? Did they just come to mind?
Inexplicably dark and sadistically clawed was kind of the first thing that I thought. You have inexplicably is like, okay, so there's this like a sense of mystery and otherworldliness, and sadistically is just like, this is not just dangerous, but it will take enjoyment. I don't know, I think that, 5 words, inexplicably dark and sadistically clawed, does more to build up an image of these monsters as something than Hill managed in her whole paragraph.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting, isn't it? Just the sounds of the words and the syllabic content of the word. And then, of course, there's a sort of slight rhyming going on there as well. But married to the association with the creatures themselves, then the movement of the creatures. And then on top of that, you're getting a sensation of, or at least a thought of, their behaviour. You know, it's sadistic. A synonymous word with that is evil, isn't it? You know, it's beyond causing pain, it's the pleasure of pain, isn't it? You do get a real sense of where they are, coming from in terms of, behaviourally speaking, I mean. So the conscious choice then to sort of split the tone then, how do you feel that works then? Do you think they work together, one sort of influences and at least highlights their own part as well, because you have got a tonal sort of shift there?
Yeah, I think that it's easier to write the first half.
Well, as in the beasts, the movements,
to do an unnaturalness with it than it is to do a naturalness with it.
Yeah,
with longer to work on, you might think perhaps having that shift inside a paragraph is no more effective than Sandra Hill's. But I do think that mine is pronounced and obviously different. Like if you can't see the difference between the first half and second half of that paragraph when you're reading it, then you're not paying attention.
Then you're not paying attention at all. Yeah. I think they complement each other, don't they?
In that they're supposed to work against each other almost. Like they exaggerate, juxtapose each other's style. Yeah. I mean, what do you think? She looked at Knut. Like I said, I've spoken about saying looked in other videos.
Because you've got this fantastic kind of scene and alien concept of beasts coming towards you. It's so alien, really. This brings it back to basic instinct in a way.
In my mind, it's like, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Like, this is a fundamentally human thing to do.
It's the most basic, but it's the most probably appropriate response in a way, because what else could you do? This is my version. Fear heightened Andrea's senses. She sucked in a deep breath. Something was coming. The primeval concern for safety prevented her from looking outside. But she had to. It was coming. She could feel it. In the distance, a rhythmic cycle of hoarse, demonic breathing and the sound of earth being ripped apart. Andrea had to look. The pasture was invaded by an indecipherable mass that had crushed the outer ranch and crashed through the perimeter fencing, moving towards her. The mass mutated, separating into scaly creatures that sensed and hunted her. The approaching blooded claws and blooded eyes fractured Andrea's ability to act, save for placing one hand on the window pane. I have used some of the original language. I haven't included, obviously, the red eyes, but the claws, blooded eyes, which I've put there, because I wanted to see if you could still use those fairly obvious descriptions or actions, and see if it could hopefully kind of work in a more creative way. So hopefully I've achieved that. What I wanted to do, the main thing, was to think about the psychological effects of this situation that this person's in. So I realise the tone of my piece is massively different to the tone of the original. I mean, that's fairly obvious, as the tone is yours as well. So it is a lot more serious, but I also wanted to go back to that primeval instinct of your body thinking and your mind obviously sensing something, even though she's obscured at the moment by the building that she's in. I
like that it's still very much early human. You do get that sense of it, but then it gives you as well the sense of like an ancient evil, which of course it is. We're talking about Lucifer and things, and angels and vampires and cowboys and all sorts, but angels and demons basically. You should have that sense of the epic in there, I think. I really like that. I like that right from the beginning, like the compulsion to look. It's like, you've got to look. You really should be running. You really should. But
I was cautious to use the repetition of so something was coming, and then I think I say again it was coming, and then I've got the repetition of but she had to look, and then again she had to look. So it's kind of a stylistic choice, but again I'm hoping that's in keeping with the rhythmic, and this approaching kind of massive monsters, so you've got the rhythmic of the breathing and the sounds they're creating, but also the rhythm in the repetition of the language.
I like the way you've used mass, like
Yeah.
twice, and mass mutated also sort of says mass mutation. Again, it's also the root of massive, so it's like it does give it a scale, gives it, like when it mutates, like really inhuman. But like again, when we talked about the dehumanization of the original part, it's like your part, the mass mutated is moving away.
Yeah,
and moving away, whereas hers moves towards the human.
Yes.
It's like, that's
it does,
why
doesn't it?
yours
Yeah.
works better than hers straight off the bat in that regard.
With the mass itself, where you've obviously very consciously used those quite heavy polysyllabic words, the main one for me is indecipherable, because that was I was thinking, what kind of word choice can sort of at least create this sense of a mass, and I thought that an indecipherable is quite a long, and hopefully that gives a sense of how kind of big this mass is and the length of it, you know.
It's sensual, but it's like brings you those senses one at a time. Like you give us the hearing first, there's the rhythmic cycle, the hoarse breathing, and then the sound of the earth being ripped apart works on both levels. So when you feel that the power that is sort of transforming Mother Nature almost, like tearing apart the earth, that immediately is striking as being of considerable power. And at this point, because we haven't seen what it is, it's an indecipherable mass, then it's breaking apart and separating, and then it's like the individual details of those, the claws, the eyes, and they actually have an impact on Andrea as well. So it's just like all of that works.
Yeah, I liked exploring really that sort of primeval thing. She's feeling it first, then she sees it, then it breaks down further into a mutated sort of mass, and then of course they get closer and closer, and then the resulting effect is how she sort of stopped. You know, she doesn't quite know what to do, and in the same way, like yours, she looks at, you know, mind just places the, you know, because there's nothing else she can do at that moment.
I'm going to ask you about the bloodied claws and the bloodied eyes. If I saw that in somebody else's book, I would look at it and go, is that on purpose?
Yeah.
And with mine, with the inexplicably dark and sadistically clawed, I might be inclined to have said, like, not sadistically, but you could have said bloodletting claws, and for a more dehumanizing, bloodless eye. So you'd have the approaching bloodletting claws and bloodless eyes, fractured ability. So you still would have the sound that you're looking for. Yeah. But bloodletting claws is, I think, more threatening, and bloodless eyes is less human.
Yeah, I think.
I don't know. It's like, for me, that works. That works. I'm just throwing out, perhaps.
Yes, no, definitely take
justify your work.
Yeah. I think you are right actually. I mean, but bloodied initially, probably on a more superficial level. I think you've gone slightly deeper than I had with mine there. I think a way of dramatising them, and to give a bit of a history of how violent they are.
The focus on that part is actually Andrew's reaction to it.
Yes, yeah, she's the hand on the window pane, almost in a gesture just to sort of stop them.
I think that's quite natural. Almost a powerlessness, like you say, like almost checking if it's real or not when you see this. Something it's so inhuman, which you've done with a mass mutate and things like that so very well.
It's quite hard to say, isn't it? Because although we've had the same template to work from, we've gone quite different ways again. You know, I focus more on perhaps the psychological stuff, wherever you've thought more. I think more about the writing, the language you've chosen to utilise as a way of describing the scene. I have attempted to mirror the tone somewhat of the original, whereas you've used the tools of the original in that the claws and the eyes and things have taken directly from her. And I don't think I've taken very much from hers at all. You got to decide. It's your channel. You got no. If there's any deciding, I'm afraid that I like mine enough that I will fight in my corner this time, and fight it tooth and bloodied claw. Sadistically clawed. Yeah, that's right. No, there's no tooth and claw. Yeah.
I don't know.
So do you openly and quite candidly prefer your version to mine?
I'm afraid I do.
Do you?
I do.
Do you?
I do. And that is not in any way to say that there's anything wrong with yours, or particularly that I would do differently.
Yeah.
Yours is a very effective piece of writing.
Mm. What grade?
So?
What grade?
Well, great. Oh, it's an A.
Yeah. Not an A star.
Oh, do they do A stars?
Well, they used to.
God,
I don't know if
really
they still...
am old. They didn't do A stars when I was at school.
Never admit that.
They'd be like, you got an A. What more do you want?
Yeah.
They're just getting greedy.
Yeah.
You realise that if we can't decide, we have to give Hill the win.
We have to give up.
Hill, Sandra Hill. We have to give Hill the win.
Oh, no way. You can have it then, if that means, you know. I think what I like about yours, preference to the two parts that kind of it is in, I much prefer the first part, because I think you do use the language quite cleverly. It's very concentrated, and I think when you read it out loud, that comes to the fore, doesn't it? You know, and of course the given a nature and behavioural nature to yours through the inexplicably and sadistically. I like sadistically is a very good choice of word there.
Right. I'm going to rip yours apart, tear it up for ass paper, and then I'm going to tell you that it's good. Right? So you have to bear with me, right?
Yeah, go on.
I'm going to tell you a little bit, but she had to, it was coming, she could feel it. Is a little bit.
Not cliched.
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah, right? I agree. I do agree with you.
And I think that we've spoken about it, the bloody claws and the bloodied eyes.
Yeah.
I think you can do more with that.
Yes.
But between those, I don't think you can do more. But I think in the distance, everything from in the distance, and then the mass mutated separating into scaly creatures that sensed and hunted for her. I like all of that enough that I can't claim to be any better than yours.
I guess what this is trying to do, her passage really, is basically express something's coming towards somebody. And I think the way you've written your bit and how they move, the frenziedness to them, the scaling, the scuttling, inexorably towards the right, I think, you know, forget your second part almost. I think what that's doing what she's trying to do and doing it really well. So, and I think you engage in that movement more than I do. I feel like mine's more peripheral and maybe more panoramic in a sense, you know. And then even when I talk about them mutating, I don't necessarily get to the bones of their movement or how they behave really. Only that they're coming toward, you know. So I think potentially you could have the win. if you want to claim the win,
I'm claiming them.
You can have the win.
So did you agree with our choice? Of course you did. Mine was obviously the better option. But if you did or you didn't, feel free to vote in the comments. Also, if you fancy having a go at it yourself, have a go and leave your entry in the comments. Definitely like and subscribe for more of this. Watch some of our other videos and do all of that YouTubey stuff.
Yeah.
As long as it's on our channel.
Yeah. And it should be.
And it should be. Yes. See you in the next video.
See you later.
She saves the Vikings by making soup. You know, there's like
right.
There's like a famine,
Bloody hell.
and she makes soup, and that's it. And it's just like, where
Is that how she saves? And how do they cure their insatiable attraction to one another then? Do they have bread?
Croutons.
Croutons, yeah.
So did you agree with our choice of me winning again?
No.
Or did you think that Scott's was better? In which case, you can always comment. You can, even if you fancy having a go at it yourself, stick yours in the comments and we'll have a look at them.
Yeah, I'd be very keen. Very keen.
But certainly, like... the odds of that.
I know.
Right, so I'm going to do the whole thing again because I don't know where I was when it went. I'm going to give that a minute, and if it does that again, I'm going to put it on airport mode and do it again. Yeah. So